GAN is a Chinese speedcubing company that was established in 2014 by former Chinese NR holder Gan Jiang. It was the official sponsor of speedcubing goat Felix Zemdegs, Timon Kolosinski, Max Park, Leo Borromeo, Zhu Rihang, Wang Yiheng, and many others. There was a time when GAN was the dominant brand among top speedcubers, when the most daring innovations were spearheaded by GAN. A time when GAN represented quality and luxury, and other cube brands were just a compromise. This is not what it's like now. Each new GAN release is less whelming than the last, and they're rejected by even the most die-hard of GAN fans. Every few months, a top speedcuber switches away to a brand like Moyu or Qi. Every day, this company falls into obscurity and oblivion, as people forget about its golden age. So why do I think that this company still has hope? Part 1. The GAN business model. Gan Jiang was the 2003 to 2004 Chinese Rubik's Cube champion and held the NR for a while back in the day. With a degree in civil engineering under the belt, he began making speedcubes. The industry was booming during this time, with Moyu and Qi also being founded in this era. However, Jiang brought something unique to this table. His perspective as a competitive speedcuber allowed him to be in touch with the exact problems cubers faced, as well as the innovations that would fix them. Their first release, which was the GAN's 357, had one of the first anti-corner twisting mechanisms. Its competitor, the Aolong, didn't have this tech, which cost Felix Zemdegs a world record. Because of this, as well as a brief marketing snafu, Zemdegs switched to GAN cubes. The plethora of subsequent world records set by Zemdegs worked to solidify the quality of GAN cubes in the speedcubing zeitgeist. GAN was always the first to introduce a revolutionary speedcubing technology. They introduced easy spring swaps with their GES nut system in the 356 Air. They made the first factory magnetized cube with the 356 Air UM, which became industry standard afterward. They released the first cube with swappable magnets with the GAN X, and the first cube with core magnets with the 11M Pro. They could do this because they focused all of their R&D on 3x3. Other companies fooled around with side events and big cubes and 2x2, but GAN was locked into optimizing the main event. This allowed them to monopolize each of these technologies. There was a period in time where if you wanted no corner twists, you needed a GAN cube. If you wanted easy spring swaps, you needed a GAN cube. If you wanted a cube that had the newest technology, there was no other option. GAN dominated as a high quality and luxury brand. You could bet money on their next release being a banger, because it always was. If you were serious in any way about cubing, you needed a GAN cube. That was what GAN was in 2018. They had just released the GAN X, which was the cube of the year by miles despite the $60 price tag. If you didn't have the budget, you had to compromise. Or did you? Part 2. The rise of budget cubes. The Yushin Little Magic was one of the most important releases. It didn't get any world records, nor was it a favorite among the pros. It was a popular release, explicitly because of its appeal to novices. It was $5 and somehow had decent corner cutting, good stability, great speed, and all the makings of a pro-level speedcube. The same was true for the $8 MF3RS2, a stable and satisfying cube that some top cubers switched to on account of its performance. Yes, this $8 budget cube was able to stand toe-to-toe with a $40 GAN cube simply based on how good it was. It was a cheat code. So, what justified GAN's exorbitant prices again? Sure, GAN made good cubes, but you could make good cubes at a fraction of the cost. And the large customer base that budget cubes had made it so the success of these cubes at times exceeded the success of the flagship cubes. This was the motivation behind the release of the GAN R, a $9 non-magnetic high-value cube. You could purchase it, magnetize it yourself, and you would have a top speed cube that rivaled their flagships. $9 was a bit expensive given that Yushin had released a $10 magnetic speed cube the year before, but come on, it was GAN. Wait, I think I misread something here. It says here that the GAN R was $19. Surely there's no way that's true. Releasing a non-magnetic cube in 2019 for $19 would be the dumbest thing in cubing history. But that's what they did. I can't even begin to understand what compelled them to release this. It had to have been blatantly obvious what a failure this would have been to everyone involved. Why would you release a cube like this when the MF3RS3M, the YG-MGC, and the Yushin Kylin V2M were all cheaper, magnetic, and better? GAN learned from these mistakes for next time. In 2020, Moyu released the RS3M 2020, a $10 magnetic cube that had all the good qualities of the MF3RS2M, just with a bit more speed. It quickly became not only the most purchased cube of the year, but the most purchased cube of all time. To compete with this cube, GAN released the Monster Go sub-brand, which was a budget and beginner-friendly alternative to their flagships. Under this, they released the Monster Go EDU, a $10 magnetic speed cube that was marketed as the Rs3M killer. It didn't live up to the hype due to a lack of a spring adjustment system and worse performance. Although this attempt to expand into the budget cube scene wasn't as devastating, it was still unsuccessful. GAN was doomed to make $60 magnetic cubes till the end of time. That was okay though. As long as they didn't mess up their flagships, they would happily enjoy their position as a luxury cube brand. Part 3. Maglev and the GAN 12. The problem with springs and speed cubes is that during each turn, the spring and the screw rub against each other, which slows the cube down. But as Chris Tran pointed out, if you replace the spring with 2 repelling magnets, then you basically have 0 friction. This would be GAN's next big innovation, and they would monopolize this just as they did with the cubes of the past. Their next release, the GAN 12, was a Maglev juggernaut, and was the fastest cube they had ever released. But GAN wasn't able to beat its competition to the punch. The Rs3M 2021 and the Worm 2021 released within a month of the GAN 12, and were also Maglev. Perhaps more devastating was the fact that the Rs3M was only $12. In comparison, the GAN 12 was $78. GAN's usual approach of monopolizing new technologies failed here due to Moyu's quick releases of cheaper options, and many novices chose to go with the Rs3M 2021 instead. What about pro cubers? The Rs3M 2021 might be cheaper, but the GAN 12 had to be better, right? Also no, the GAN 12 had massive corner magnets which caused the cube to automatically complete turns. In theory, a good idea, but in practice it made the cube harder to control because the cube felt more uneven. The first few batches of the GAN 12 also had a weird catching issue, which was not present in the GAN 11. This mellowed out in later batches, but it was such a bizarre blip in quality from a brand that prided itself on its professionalism and reliability. If you were one of the unlucky few GAN fans who pre-ordered this cube, you were punished. This would be more understandable if this was a $20 or $30 cube, but customers invested $78 into a cube that GAN couldn't even bother to vet properly. People lost a lot of confidence in GAN cubes after this bluster. Part 4. Success in the side events. The first side event puzzle GAN made was the GAN Megaminx. People didn't know what to expect from a puzzle like this, given that GAN was the 303 brand. Designing a Megaminx was a whole different beast. But the GAN Megaminx wasn't just good, it was excellent, and it was the Megaminx of choice for world champion Tristan Chua-Young and YouTuber Laser Monkey. A lot of people chose the YJ Yuhu V2 over it, but it was surprisingly competitive for GAN's first outing. GAN Pyraminx was their second side event puzzle, and it was a good puzzle. Lincoln Jiang got the world record with it. Other Pyraminx mainers weren't as kind to it, maining the Weilong and Lil Magic Pyraminxes over it due to its catching issues, but the GAN Pyraminx was still good, and was by no means a failure. The GAN Cube, on the other hand, was the best cube on the market by miles, blowing the Moyu Aoyan out of the water. Even 5 years later, it's the main for the vast majority of the top 100. It was clear that GAN wasn't just fooling around, and their cubes were meant to dominate. Their subsequent 2x2 release, the GAN 251, got tons of compliments and roses from everyone. Some people had a personal preference from the Walk 2M, but no one could deny that the GAN 251 was the finest of this already fine bunch. Zayn Kanani and Wang Yiheng both broke the sub-1 barrier using this cube. Most recently, GAN released the second version of their Megaminx, which was quickly mained by Tristan Chua-Young. And just this February, it broke world record when Timofey Tarasenko got a well-deserved 25-36 average. It's kinda crazy to think that every single one of these puzzles got a world record at some point. That's not even something you could say about the 3-3s. It goes to show the level of quality and consistency that GAN is bringing to the side events. Their business model of investing heavily in R&D and making the best cube again and again was more attainable in this less competitive scene. Part 5. Diminishing returns. GAN had a chance to redeem themselves with a strong release in the form of the GAN 13. If they played their cards right, then they could revitalize the brand name. To do this, the GAN 13 had to be better than the GAN 12, which would push top cubers to main it. To its credit, the GAN 13 was better. The changes from the GAN 12 to the GAN 13, however, were extremely minor. The cube had slightly better corner cutting stability and all the important details, but the feel was the same. If you were good on the GAN 12, you would be just as fast on the GAN 13. Most GAN gurus didn't switch to the 13. When even your sponsorees don't switch to your newest flagship, that demonstrates how unremarkable a cube is. The effort that it took to get used to a new cube outweighed the possible benefits they would get from switching. Compare this to the Tornado V3 and the WRM V9, which released in the same year. The Worm V9 was a distinct cube with a plush and soft feel compared to the Worm 2021's snappiness. The Tornado V3 was a crispy cube compared to the smooth and buttery Tornado V2. These cubes weren't just better than the previous versions, but they presented entirely different experiences. If you had the previous cube, there was still value in buying the next one, but the GAN 13 was roughly the same experience as the GAN 12. The GAN 14, on the other hand, was a very different experience from the GAN 12. In a bad way. It was actually a much worse cube than the GAN 12 due to its popping problem. Even a 45-degree corner cut would cause the cube to explode. Keep in mind, this was in an era where popping hadn't been an issue since the Dian Zhanshi in 2011. No other cube on the market popped like this. Even when it wasn't popping, it was flimsy, uncontrollable, and an unbearable cube to use. Once again, the people who trusted GAN and bought this cube with confidence were punished severely. This cube was $87 and was clearly unfinished. Now the logical thing to do would be to attempt a recall and refund the customers that bought your cube. Or better yet, replace the cube with a GAN 13 or something. This would involve a loss of revenue and would tank the company's profits, but in the long term, it would be the best way to save face and protect the brand. Because GAN's brand is why people pay so much money for these cubes. Instead, they released a GAN 14 Pro Cube, which was marketed to have a pro-level anti-pop mechanism. Yep, they asked the customers who bought the GAN 14 for more money, just to get a functional cube. This is not how a luxury cubing brand acts. This isn't how you treat your customers. They trusted you to make a good cube, and you betrayed their confidence and then asked for more money. GAN put so much effort into establishing themselves as an innovative and top-level cube manufacturer, and went down the drain because GAN released this incredibly rushed product. Part 6. The final nail in the coffin. In 2024, GAN released their most recent cube, the GAN 15. They spent a lot of money into R&D for this cube, flying in top cubers from across the globe to try multiple prototypes of it. They didn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. They built up hype through the GAN SSL and was supposed to be their comeback. It even had a relatively cheap price. But even after the release, most top cubers still use the GAN 12. In fact, world record holder Wang Ying switched to the Moyu Super Weilong V2 immediately after his contract wore out, as did Zhang Bofan. Unless GAN comes out with a groundbreaking technology real soon, their future releases will flop. But there is a light in the dark. For years, the 5x5 scene was comprised of the Volk 5, the Ouchwang, the MGC, and the Dian Neisha, all cubes of similar quality. There was little movement in this cubing niche. 2024's X-Men Hong broke the meta and was the new best 5x5 for a brief moment. In fact, Max Spark still uses it. But just a few months later, GAN released their first 5x5, which was easily the best. It wasn't even a contest. After over 2 years of designing and developing it, they made something amazing. It was a glimmer of what GAN was in the past. They recaptured their previous spirit with something that was so far ahead of the competition that it seemed impossible to top. And so far, it hasn't been. Their business model can work here. Go through each of the side events and innovate. Push the boundaries further than they have ever been pushed. Currently, they're doing this with 4x4 and Square 1, but I want to see more. As for 3x3, they can try out a new feel. Maybe bring back the feel of the GAN X or the GAN Air SM in their newest puzzle. This would doubtless reward the cubers who have been with GAN since those times, as well as provide something fresh and exciting for the young among us. I don't think they'll go down this path, but I hope it happens. Finally, GAN still has the trust of many cubers. I don't hate GAN, nor am I preying on their downfall. I want to see this company succeed out of respect for how instrumental they were to cubing success in the 2010s. But I just hope that in the future they buttress the trust in GAN that the cubing community has, instead of betraying it with rushed releases and defective products. I know they have it in them. I just hope they bring it back. Thanks for watching. I'll be posting a channel update soon. Many thanks to Speedcube Shop for sponsoring this channel. Use code NOTME for 5% off of your order, and I'll see you next time.